Allahu, 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 Allah, Allah. Salah, there's mention of evening salah, there's mention of fajr, but a specified start and end time is not mentioned in the Quran. The Quran has the obligation of salah definitely within it, but the timings of salah, we get them from the ahadith, from the hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in the notes you will see, and that's the hadith I have listed out for you guys. That's the major hadith which defines the timings for salah for us. This is called hadith of Jibreel, or also called hadith of Jabir ibn Abdullah. This hadith is in continuation of the instance of Isra wal Miraj. I already mentioned Isra wal Miraj took place. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam went up to the seventh heavens, and there he received the gift of salah. He came down, and back and forth happened from 50 to 5, the salah obligation was developed. Then Jabir narrates that Jibreel alayhi salam, the next day Jibreel alayhi salam came to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So after the salah has been obligated, Jibreel alayhi salam came to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam for 2 consecutive days. And the first day the Jibreel came, and I will quote here, Jibreel came to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said, "Stand and pray." So he prayed Dhuhr Salah once the sun had zenith. What is zenith? This is the meridian, this is the time when sun is directly on top of our head. If you're on the equator, the sun will be directly on top of your head. If you're in other areas which are above or beyond the equator, it may not be exactly on top of your head, it may be to the front, to the back a little bit. So you may still have a bit of a shadow. But on an equator, in the middle exactly of the earth, if you are at the time of zenith, you would almost have no shadow. That is the time of zenith, the meridian essentially. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was told by Jibreel alayhi salam to stand and pray, and he prayed when the sun had just passed the zenith. So sun rises from where? For the kids, where does the sun rise from? I hope you know, east, right? Rises in the east, sets in the west. So the journey of the sun. Is the sun moving or is the earth moving? Earth is moving. So here what is being talked about is the mushahida, what you see. Not necessarily it tells you that sun is actually moving around the earth. It is earth moving. The mushahida is, what we see is that the sun is moving, starts from the east, rises from the east, and sets in the west. And because the hadith talks about and starts from the salah of Dhuhr, that's where we'll begin with respect to timings as well. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ on the first day prayed Dhuhr when sun just passed the zenith, meaning it's rising from the east. It came up and hit the middle, and now it's about to set. This is called zawal. The zawal has started. The decline has started. That's when the salah for Dhuhr was performed by Prophet Muhammad ﷺ upon the statement of Jibreel. Then Jibreel alayhi salam came to him at Asr and said, "Stand and pray." So he prayed the Asr prayer once the shadow of each object had reached the length of that object, or the shadow was the same length. So just to explain, and that's the stuff I've bolded in the hadith. So sun came, salah for Dhuhr, he prayed and he let the sun go down, and when the sun had gone down to a certain level towards west, that his shadow was formed towards the east. The length of the shadow was the same as the height of the object. You guys understand? Geometry, right? And that's when he performed Asr. Again, this is the first day. Then he came to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and he said, at Maghrib time, and he said, "Stand and pray." So he prayed once the sun had set. What does setting of sun mean? What does setting of sun mean? Day is over, but setting of sun, what does it look like? All of sun had gone down, or just the sun had touched the horizon? Sun is under the horizon. That's correct. The disk has disappeared. The sun, call it a disk, right? Circular, right? It comes and it has hit the horizon and has passed the horizon, meaning the disk has fully disappeared. That is what is called sunset. So the sunset in hadith is the same sunset as we know in academia, in our journal study. If you Google right now, sunset, you Google sunset right now, the time you find is the exact time for Maghrib. It is the same time in Islam as well as in the common understanding, right? So if you're fasting, you're opening up your fast, you don't have Islamic calendar with you, sunset time is good enough. You can follow that for your local area. So that's when he prayed Salatul Maghrib. And then he came to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ at the time of Isha and he said, stand and pray. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ prayed at the time when the twilight had disappeared. So these couple of statements, we'll talk about them further down there as well. Twilight had disappeared. What is twilight? Light after sunset? So they call it the legal twilight is actually the entire day period, the entire period starting from the start of dawn or just before dawn even, all the way till post sunset till it's fully dark. But the twilight here is being talked about is after the sun has gone down, there's still light on the horizon. And light is of different shades. You'll find yellow light, you'll find red light, you'll find, what other light would you find? You'll find yellow, red and green, orange, white light, correct? If you, especially in summertime, if you look at night time after Maghrib, you'll see a little bit of white light still out there. Almost in certain periods, couple of weeks, that white light actually never even goes away. So we'll define twilight in a bit. So he performed the salah of Isha when twilight had disappeared, meaning it was full darkness. Then he came to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ at Fajr time and he said, stand and pray. So he prayed once the dawn had lightened or when dawn had become apparent. What is dawn? They say break of dawn, right? Sorry? Little before the sunrise? Light before the sun rises? Okay, that's correct. So before the sun comes up, just like when sun goes down, after sun has gone down, the disk has disappeared, there is still light on the horizon. And slowly and gradually that light disappears. First it's red, first the redness disappears, then the whiteness remains, then the whiteness disappears, and then you have pitch black darkness. Like you just look outside, there won't be any twilight right now. I can say that with surety because we are in winter time. In winter time there is almost no twilight out there. So in this case, the sun goes down, takes a full circle, you spend the night, and before sun is about to come up, the disk is about to appear. Before appearing of the disk and the sun is at a certain degree below the horizon, you start seeing some light on the horizon. And when that light has reached a certain quality, we'll talk about that down there, that is called break of dawn. Now we don't usually have to worry about all of these things. Why? Because we have timetables, right? We love our timetables, we fight over our timetables, but we have timetables. So every masjid, actually start of year, they post the timetables, they have their calendar, so you know exactly what time you have to pray. And usually we don't care about Fajr and Isha times, except when it comes time for Ramadan, right? Because you have to fast, and when to open the fast, and when to pray Isha, because Isha is so late, especially in these times. So this becomes useful for practical purposes when you're traveling. Many a times I'm in the plane traveling and the time is passing pretty quickly. It's Isha, you perform Isha and you're awake for a bit, you don't know whether the time for Fajr is coming or not, right? So literally I actually take the aisle seat and look outside the window because my app is useless. Unless you have a pretty good app, you can't really tell exactly what is happening with your salah. So for Fajr, you can actually witness this break of dawn. You can see the horizon while flying. And anyways, in old times people didn't used to have GPS or iPhones or whatever. So the basis is this. All the timetables which are developed are based upon this hadith. And there are a couple of other hadith as well. So he performed salah at the break of dawn. Then Jibreel alayhi salam came to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam the next day at Dhuhr time. And he said, stand and pray. So he prayed Dhuhr once the shadow of everything was the same as the length or the height of the object, which was the same time he performed Asr last time, right? Next day Jibreel came when it is about to be Asr time, and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed Dhuhr. So you can see there is continuation. Dhuhr starts at Zawal and ends at when the length of the shadow is the same as the height of the object. Correct? Then he came to him afterwards and he performed, paraphrase the hadith, he performed Asr when the shadow of the object was twice the size or the length of the object. So one shadow, start of Asr, two shadows, the second time of Asr that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed with Jibreel. Correct? And then he came to him at the time of Maghrib and he performed Maghrib at the same time he prayed the first day. Meaning at sunset, Jibreel came and he performed Maghrib at the same time. There was no variance in time in the first day and the second day for Maghrib. And then he says, then Jibreel alayhi salam came to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when 1/3 of the night had passed or half of the night had passed and performed Isha Salah. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam performed Isha Salah at that time. Then he came to him at Fajr time once it became very, you can call it bright or very yellow. Sun had not come up, but it became very clear, very bright, very yellow. You can see a lot of light out there. And he performed Fajr at that time. And then he said, what is between these two is the time. Meaning between the first day and the second day, every salah which has been performed, between these salah is your prayer time. Is your prayer time. So, very quickly, time for Dhuhr. Start time for Dhuhr. And this is, if you want to take notes, this is the time to take notes for this. By unanimous agreement, Dhuhr starts when the sun starts to decline from the zenith, from its high point, which is the highest point of the sky, and it starts to descend towards the west. The end time for Dhuhr is when the shadow of each object is the same length as the object itself. This is the majority opinion for the end time. This is the opinion of the Malikis, this is the opinion of the Shafis, the Ahmad bin Hanbal, as well as the opinion of the two companions of Imam Abu Hanifa, which is Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Shaybani and Abu Yusuf. There is a difference of opinion here. Imam Abu Hanifa, he held the opinion the time for Dhuhr does not end till the shadow is twice the length of the object. I mean, he had his basis for what he stated, but the majority opinion, and that's the opinion which is followed, even actually in the masajid here as well. The adhan times everywhere in the masajid is based upon the majority opinion, which is the shadow is the same length as the object. I just want to let you know, because if you go back home, some of the Hanafi masjids may have the Asr bit late. That's because of the Imam Abu Hanifa's opinion. In fact, a lot of Hanafis today are following the majority opinion as well. Just letting you know that you may find that difference, and that is based upon the difference from a statement of Imam Abu Hanifa. So there is some hadith actually which talks about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told the companions, or he actually commanded for the prayer to be delayed, Dhuhr prayer to be delayed when it is hot outside. And that's one of the istidlal of Imam Abu Hanifa, to delay the Dhuhr prayer to that late. So the preferable time you will find for Dhuhr generally is, it should be prayed as it is the case for every salah. Salah should be performed in its earliest time. So Dhuhr should be performed in its earliest time, except when it is very hot outside. To combine between the ahadith. When we combine between different ahadith, we come to this conclusion: the dhuhr should be prayed in its earliest time, except when it is hot outside, and then the imam may delay the adhan. If he delays the adhan, then the prayer will be performed a bit later. Understood? Any questions so far? No. Okay.
See if the sisters need any of the sheets.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Actually, there is extra, so just pass along to them. Then we go on to the time of Asr. And by the way, if you come, just preemptive questions, you're following this opinion, majority opinion, you go back home, they're performing Asr much late in the masjid. The adhan is much late. What do you do? What do you do? Muiz, you go back home. The Asr time kicks in, per the calendar, per the single shadow, at 3 o'clock. They don't perform Asr till like, I don't know, 5:30. What do you do?
Is the time for Asr like over completely?
It's not over. Okay, go back. No, time for Asr is not over yet. But they are performing Asr at 5:30. And we said preferable for Salah is to be performed earlier. What do you do? Just join, yeah. If you pray in congregation, regardless, that's always preferred to pray in congregation, because you're not negating anything here. So let's talk about Asr. Start time for Asr, we said, is what? Based upon the hadith. If you follow the majority opinion for the end time for Dhuhr, then the start time for Asr is the same as the end time of the Dhuhr. Correct? Right. And if you follow the minority opinion, the start time is going to be what? 2 shadows. Correct? Okay. So that's understood. What is the end time for Asr? By unanimous agreement, the end time is just before the sun sets. This is the legal time. So here I'm going to talk about the legal time, or the legally, if you perform Salah within this time, the Salah is valid, it is performed. But then there is a there is a time which should be, like there is a preferable time and there is a legal time. So legal time for this is just before the sunset, right? That does not mean you should wait till the very end to perform Asr, because we have other narrations which talk about a preferable time, which is quite a bit before, like some time before that, when the sun had become yellowish to the point that you can actually visibly see the sun. That's why we have all been raised with this concept, right? Asr Salah has to be performed as soon as possible. It is even more imperative if you follow the minority opinion. Why? Because according to the minority opinion, Asr Salah start time is very late. Correct? Because of the 2 shadows. But then before Maghrib, quite a bit before Maghrib, you have to stop. So your window of opportunity for performing Salah properly is quite small. Understood? Right? So Asr is one of those prayers, and that's what is mentioned in the Quran, like Salatul Wusta, the middle prayer. It is something people are sometimes negligent in. And there are hadith regarding, the one who performs Salah at the end of Asr time, he just prays like a pecking of the bird on the earth, right? So we are sort of commanded, and it's highly recommended to perform Asr in its earliest time, as soon as possible, and don't delay till it is close to Maghrib time. For whatever reason, something came up, you had an injury or something, for some difficulty, if you end up praying just before the sunset, that is okay, Salah is still valid. But don't make that a habit. Don't make that a habit. Understood? Okay. In that regards, I have the second hadith of Abdullah bin Amr mentioned there, which talks about the afternoon prayer. It is, the time for it is as long as the sun has not become pale, yellow, or you are able to see the sun without any difficulty. And you see that, right? Sun is very hard to see. You can't literally see the sun with a naked eye when it is up right above you. And as it is going down, even at Asr time, when Asr time starts, you cannot see the sun. You'll have some difficulty. But when it is about to set, just before setting, you see it becomes yellow. You see a lot of different colors out there. It has not started, the disk has not disappeared. It has not hit the horizon, but it has become yellow, that is a time when the Asr time, the preferable time for Asr has ended. The legal time is still there, and the legal time is there till the disk touches the horizon. As soon as the disk touches the horizon, now the legal time has ended as well. Now we are into the prohibited time, and we'll talk about it afterwards. There are 3 major prohibited times when you should not pray salah. If that time hits and your salah, you haven't done your salah, then you hold your salah till that phase has passed, and then you perform your salah after that. It will be qada in this case. If you do it within the time, it is considered ada. It is valid, and you have performed your salah properly. So, after mentioning the legal time started, and what is the preferred time now for Asr then? As soon as possible, as soon as the single shadow. As soon as the shadow becomes 1 shadow to 2 shadows. 1 shadow to 2 shadow, that time is your preferable time for Asr. Legal time will carry on. Legal time will carry on till some point further. But the preferable time based on the hadith, the first hadith is within that window, first shadow to 2 shadows. Any questions? Sorry. So the preferable time for Asr is from the 1 shadow onward to 2 shadows. In some cases it is mentioned it is the yellow disk, when you are able to see the sun as yellow. Because there is, after that time, depending on whether it is winter time or summer time, there's about 20 minutes of gap between that time onward to the sunset. And that time is what they call, legally you may be able to perform salah for a portion of that, but you should really avoid that. You should really avoid that. And when you see sun starting to set, that's when you should not perform salah at all. Understood? This is a difficult topic. I confuse myself by mentioning these different times. So if there is a clarity required, feel free to ask right away. We talk about Dhuhr, we talk about Asr, Maghrib. Maghrib is quite simple. By unanimous agreement, the Maghrib time begins when the sun has set, meaning the disk has disappeared. The end time, there is an ikhtilaf on the end time. The majority opinion for the end time for Maghrib is when because it talks about shafaq, like the twilight being disappearing. What is this twilight? Majority opinion is that this twilight is the redness in the sky. If the redness disappears, then Maghrib time has ended, and what has started? Isha has started. Minority opinion is that the twilight is the whiteness in the sky, and the whiteness has to disappear. That's the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa, and that is a difficult situation, especially for people living in North America, especially in summertime. If you look in summertime, the whiteness in the sky does not sometime in some few weeks disappear at all. So that's why sometimes you see online calendars, you find Isha time to be like 12:30 or something ridiculous like 1:30. The local calendars are made based upon the majority opinion regarding the redness needed to disappear, and then they have done some sort of analysis. There's actually an entire lecture done by Shaikh Hassan Shabani on the prayer time. So if you are interested in knowing the details regarding why we follow the 1 hour and 30-minute rule in Calgary, that's 90-minute rule we follow. So usually your calendar, if you see, after Maghrib, the Isha time is usually listed as 90 minutes after Maghrib time, and that is based upon some work which is done by local brothers and local shuyukh with respect to timings of salah, and that's what we follow. Any question, anything to add here, Danish, on this? Okay.
Do you know the degree that they use?
No, they don't follow a degree particularly. So yeah, so good thing the brother Danish mentioned. So what you will find often, if you have an app for timings of salah, different things you can set. You can set Qura time, you can set Istana timings, you can set something in some institute in Karachi, Pakistan, based on their timings. So what they have done is they've done calculations, astronomical calculations. So they say, we consider, let's say, dawn to be at 8 degree, or 12 degree, or 15 degree, or Isha to be at 18 degree, 16 degree, 15 degree. These are all different degrees of what sun is going to be at. So they made a rule. We will follow a certain degree. So this calendar is based upon 12 degree. This calendar is based upon 15 degree, 18 degree. And that is an ijtihad done by people. I mean, it could be right, could be wrong, but what we have studied is, at the time of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, it was all based upon mushahida. It was all based upon the signs what you see, right? So if from seeing you find a certain result, that's what you follow. That seems to be the stronger opinion. And the calendar here, they may have followed historical times, both in winter and summer, to come up with the 90-minute rule. 90-minute rule is safe for Isha, because it encompasses your winter times as well as your summer times. But perhaps in winter times, it is not exactly 90 minutes. It may be actually 80 minutes that Isha is kicking in. But we are safe because we're performing after. Performing a prayer after the time has kicked in, certain time, is okay. Performing the prayer before its time is invalid. Right? After the prayer starts until the prayer time ends, you have a gap. Like you have a period, you have flexibility within that time. But before that start time, you have no flexibility. No one can, like someone was asking me this question the other day, that Fajr is at 7:10, or it was 7:10 or 7:15. He needs to leave for work. He needs to get to work at 8 o'clock. So his azan clock was telling him 7:01. You know, one of those Al-Fajr azan clocks, right? They usually are okay, but not always. So never trust an azan clock. Make sure that your time is correct based upon the local calendar. So local calendar was saying 7:10. His azan clock was doing 7:01. He was performing salah at 6:55 because he wanted to leave by 7 o'clock. So is the salah valid? No, it's not valid. Even though, you know, you may say, well, it's just about the same time, but this case, you know exactly when the time kicks in. Don't make it any earlier than what it is, right? You can give yourself 5 minutes extra. If it's 7:15, you can perform at 7:30, 7:45, that's okay, right? But not at 7, if the time does not start till 7:15. Sorry? No, they cannot. Like if you have to leave, find other means. Pray at work. That's what I do. Like I'm just saying. Like I leave a bit early actually. In this case, I actually leave a bit more earlier so I can get to work within that valid time and perform salah at work. Because you're going to pray your dhuhr, asr, probably maghrib at work anyways. So you must have a place or location, a hideout, a stairwell to perform your salah. So perform your salah there, inshallah, right? One thing I want to correct myself here. When I said the majority opinion is that the salah for maghrib, coming back to maghrib, majority opinion is that salah for maghrib starts at sunset, ends at the ending of twilight. The minority opinion, which is the opinion of Imam Malik and one opinion of Imam Shafi, is the time for maghrib is the time it takes you to perform wudu, get up, adhan to be made for you to perform wudu and make your prayer. That don't give you any flexibility. Based upon the hadith, they go back to the original hadith. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ performed maghrib at the same time on both days. Correct? So they don't give you much flexibility, which tells you also that the maghrib is one of those prayers which has to be hastened. Right? But based on other narrations, The others have, and especially the narration which is mentioned, Abdullah bin Amr's narration, that the time for Maghrib stays till the twilight. But again, the preferred time for Maghrib is going to be what? The earliest. Earliest. The legal time is going to be till twilight. Correct? Understood?
How long is that time?
It varies. Varies. An hour to hour and 30 minutes, legal time. Based on the 90-minute rule, right? But if you follow the 90-minute rule, you probably shouldn't follow the 90-minute rule in winter for your Maghrib. Because Isha may be actually kicking in at 75 or 80 minutes or something like that. Right? So hasten in your prayers for Maghrib as well. Regarding twilight, like I said, there's a difference. Majority hold the opinion twilight is the redness. Imam Abu Hanifa held the opinion twilight is the whiteness in the sky, which makes it quite difficult to perform your Taraweeh prayer in summer months. Right? Okay.
I'm not yet clear about what time Asr ends. Like Asr, the angle of the sun, like say for example if I'm...
So Asr legal time, meaning if you perform Salah will be valid, is just before sunset.
So that means I still see, I'm able to see the sun?
Yes. Sun's disk should not touch the horizon. Right? So sun is still up there, it is going down, down, down. The disk has not touched the horizon yet, meaning sunset duration has not started. Right? There is sun coming down, one length shadow, and then sun going down, it becomes yellowish, right? Which means you can actually see the sun. The preferred time for Asr has ended now. Now you're into this, should not go into zone, but you can, if you must, zone from that point onward till the disk touches the horizon. As soon as the disk touches the horizon, you're into a prohibited time zone now, right? And then when the disk fully disappears, time for Maghrib starts now. Understood? Okay. I was hoping actually to do a presentation on it, but it's hopefully it's clear. Isha we talked about. Isha time is, the start time is the end of Maghrib time. The start time is the end of Maghrib time. And depending on whether you follow the redness opinion or the whiteness opinion, it will vary. Majority, and what we follow here is the redness. That's majority followed everywhere as well. What is the end time for Isha?
They said that between Isha and Fajr, divided in half.
Yeah.
Before that half time, that's the window for Isha.
Yeah, so again, we will talk about legal time and preferable time. Preferable time is what you should do. What you should do. So, Isha time starts from end of twilight, goes all the way till 1/3 or 1/2. The stronger opinion seems to be the half. So, how do you determine the half, the midnight, or the half of the night? Midnight is not 12 o'clock. Here, in this case, midnight is not 12 o'clock. And as the sister mentioned, how do you determine midnight? It varies. So, today what time was Isha? What time was Maghrib? 5, that's the Iqamah time. What time? Let's assume for ease of calculation, let's say 5 o'clock. Right? Let's for ease of calculation, Fajr was 7 o'clock. What is the mid time? Quick math. It's interesting, in this particular case, it comes out to be 12 o'clock exactly. Yeah. So 5 to 12 is 7 hours. 12 to 7 is 7 hours. So that's 14-hour gap between Maghrib and Fajr. 14 divided by 2 is 7. So add 7 to the 5, it turns out to be midnight.
But isn't it, I heard that it was starting from the time of Isha.
No, it is time for Maghrib. I mean, there is some discussion on that, but this is what we will follow here. That's the majority understanding of the midnight. You divide between the start of Maghrib to start a Fajr, you divide the time, whatever time you come up with, that's the time where your preferred time for Isha has ended. Isha starts, so it's a very long time for Isha. You have 7 hours to perform Isha. Well, not 7 hours, sorry. 7 minus the time, the 90 minutes. Isha starts at, 6:30? From 6:30 till 12 o'clock, you have this time to perform Isha. In winter times. In summer times, it's probably 2 hours. Because Maghrib is at 10:30, right? And Fajr is at 3 o'clock, right? So yeah, you got 2 hours, 2.5 hours, or maybe actually something like that, 2 hours to perform your Isha. So yeah, it changes, it varies. And the end time may not be always 12 o'clock, it may be 11:30, it may be 12:30, depending upon how the Fajr and Maghrib are changing. So you should have a general idea of that, what the preferable time is, because usually people stay, especially in these times, stay a bit late. And if you're not performing Salah in the masjid, you may be thinking, I got time, I can perform before sleeping, especially on weekends. People are busy doing whatever else, and it's easy for you to miss the preferred time. If you miss the preferred time, there's still legal time. You still have to perform your Isha, you have to perform your Salah. The legal time for Isha is till Fajr time. Till Fajr kicks in, the legal time for Isha is at that time. All prayers, okay, that's good. So we'll move on. So lastly, we'll talk about the Fajr. And that's where we'll end at. And we'll take some questions after that. So Fajr time starts, so for Fajr there is, as per the hadith, there are 2 Fajrs. There is Fajr Sadiq and there is Fajr Kadhib, like the lying Fajr and the truthful Fajr, if you will. The false dawn and the true dawn. And most people do not know about it, or don't have to worry about it, because again we have the timetables. But again, you will see, if you are ever going to do a mushahida, if you are going to witness it, before Fajr time, true time comes in, let's say there's darkness on the horizon, what happens is, as we're nearing towards the Fajr time, there is a light in the sky. There is a light in the sky which extends upwards, vertically. That is called a false dawn. It looks like a white light. It looks like some light is coming through. It is visible. It has no redness in it. It's just white light going upwards. And then that lasts for 10-15 minutes or so, and then it disappears. So that was a false Fajr. That is not the true time for Fajr. Many of the calendars online actually list that as the Fajr time, and that's a mistake. If you perform Salah at that time, it is invalid, right? Then comes the white light again, but now it extends horizontally across the horizon. That is called the true dawn. Okay? And with that whiteness, sometimes there is redness. Actually, there is redness with that whiteness as well. So you see black horizon, a little bit of redness, and white light. And when you're able to distinguish that white light from the black, that's when the time for Fajr has kicked in. If you're in Ramadan, you stop eating at that time. And the time you make adhan and you perform your Salah. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that there are 2 Fajrs. As for the first, it does not prevent eating, nor does it permit prayer. That is the first Fajr, the false dawn. As for the other, it prohibits eating and it allows the prayer. Meaning Fajr can be prayed now. There's some details regarding what the difference between the 2 is, but the general description I give is hopefully enough. One thing I want to talk about is imsak time that we see on our calendars, right? And that's always a topic of discussion. So when you see the Ramadan calendars come out and you see Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, and there is imsak. What is imsak? Right? And it's confusing for many people. Many questions get asked. Imsak literally means to hold. It means to hold, to stop, to hold. And these times are put in for ease of people because Fajr time is a sort of estimation, right? That this is what the Fajr is kicking in. So people wanted to be sure or extra sure that they are not eating beyond the time for Fajr has kicked in. So they put a safety net of 15 to 20 extra minutes on top. So Fajr, they said, is happening at, let's say, 5 o'clock, but Imsak is at 5:45. So stop eating at 4:45. Stop eating at 4:45 and don't pray till 5. Right? So I guess the intention is good. The intention is to not have people invalidate their fast and to also not have them invalidate their prayer by performing the prayer earlier. Right? So in that context, that's the sort of the context of why the Imsak thing exists. Again, that is okay if you want to follow that, but legally you're not bound. You're not bound to stop eating before true Fajr time. If true Fajr time is determined to be 5 o'clock, you can eat till 5 o'clock. It perhaps is better if you want to give yourself a little bit of margin, but make sure you don't stop eating and start performing Salah before the actual Fajr time kicks in. Understood? Right? So that's something that needs to be watch out for in the Ramadan times. Now I also want to quickly talk about the calendars. There are multiple calendars out there, especially your phone calendars will not be accurate. They are not, even though you can put in Calgary, it will give you times of Calgary based on Qura or Isna and so on and so forth. Especially your Isha and your Fajr timings are not going to be correct. That's why oftentimes you see Imam is leading the Salah and someone's phone goes off. Allahu Akbar, and you're like, okay, they're performing Jama'ah already and the Adhan is kicking in now. Because it is following certain other calendar. So follow your local calendars with respect to your Salah timings. It is not obligated upon you to go and witness times yourself. Some other people trustworthy have done that for you already, so you can safely follow the calendars instead. Understood? Okay. We probably will stop here. I wanted to give a quick summary of all the preferred times for Salah based upon different opinions. But what I will do is, if I have your emails, we will just send it out as part of the notes. This is the last sheet which was meant to be filled out in the class today. But what I will do for that is just I've given most of the explanation already. So inshallah, when you see the chart, it will be just fit in place for you. So with that, we'll stop. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us one of those people who listen to who are constant in their prayers and establishing their prayers within the prescribed times. Any questions on what we have talked about today? What we didn't cover is a summary of the preferred times and a quick summary of the prohibited times. We'll just carry that on to the next lecture, inshallah. What we also will cover next time will be what is the minimum amount of Salah which has to be performed for it to be considered done within that time. There are different opinions on that, but we'll touch upon that as well. Okay. No questions?
I always go with the calendar,
Yeah.
which is published by Islamic Center or Jama'ah. So I always happy to do it here, but I'm a little confused because I work 6 months December time in Waterton. So how far this is different?
You should follow the Waterton's calendar. If there's a masjid there, they would have.
No, I am the only one who's in Waterton.
So you probably should be able to get the closest area calendar. Like I don't know how far away Waterton would be.
But 264 kilometers from here.
Yeah, like it has to be looked into in terms of what. So when I travel, let's say when I travel, going to Vancouver, usually you can find local masjid calendars online. Same with Edmonton. Very little difference between us and Edmonton. But one thing I can recommend for you is, if you go to a place and you know the time here should be slightly different, just work out the fact that whether it is going to be later or earlier. And I usually add a few minutes on top of the time of the nearest location I have the time for, to be on the safe side. it is always better to delay the start of the prayer than to make it earlier, so that you are in the permissible time. General rule, right? So if it's Fajr usually kicks in at 7:15 in Calgary, I'm in Waterton, I probably won't pray till like 7:45, because I'm sure Fajr would have kicked in by now, and I'm well ahead of the end time. Question? Yeah. Yeah, it's a common question regarding combining prayers, especially when it's difficult. For example, people talk about combining Dhuhr and Asr in winter times because you are out of one meeting and you have to go to another meeting and your Asr will be missed or something like that. Or in winter times and you have to catch up on your, or in summer times and you have to catch up on your sleep and you just open your fast and you may not be able from Tarawih with Jama'ah, and you want to perform your Maghrib and combine that with Isha. So if you're traveling, no problem, right? Because traveling rules will come. In traveling, you can combine prayers. During travel, regardless. We'll talk about that afterwards. That travel allows you that leniency or that ease, essentially, where you can combine Dhuhr and Asr and Maghrib and Isha. There is slight difference of opinion whether difficulty has to be there or even without difficulty you can do that. We'll talk about that at that time. But generally, yes, during travel, you can combine prayers regardless. Can you combine prayers while you are muqim, while you're not traveling? So you're not traveling, you're in Calgary, in summertime, you guys, Maghrib is at, 10:30, and you open your fast. By the time you finish, you perform your salah, it's 11 o'clock already. And you have to wait for Isha till like 11:30, let's say, or 11. Actually, the earliest Maghrib is, I think, 10:10 in Calgary. Yeah. And the latest, the Isha is at 11:30, if you follow the 90-minute calendar, not the 1 hour and 15-minute calendar, right? Which I would recommend. 90 minutes is always the safe. 1 hour, 15-minute calendar, I know it has changed in the last couple of years. It used to be always 90 minutes, but the last couple of years they've made the change. Some groups within Calgary, they made the ijtihad to make it 11:15. Personally, me and my teachers, they feel more safe with always the 11:30, the 90-minute, minimum 90-minute rule. That's just, not to say that that is 100% wrong, but that's just a difference of opinion on that. So can you combine? Occasionally, there is some riayats, there is some ease for that occasionally, as long as that is not a habit when you are in a difficult. For example, one day you're really knackered, like you can't even stand straight, like really out of it, right? There may be an excuse for that combining, but not as a habit. It cannot be that during the entire summer, 2 weeks, I'm going to do this. No, right? Similarly, something came up, your Dhuhr is getting late, you know it's going to be late, you know it's going to be a tough, or you're sick, or something else of that nature. There are some instances of that to be combined, and that's based upon a hadith where Prophet Muhammad ﷺ combined Dhuhr and Asr and combined Maghrib and Isha while he was not traveling and there was no difficulty. There again, like I would say, there's difference of opinion on this. Some would say that no, you can never combine. That is an opinion as well. But there is an opinion also on the fact that you can combine in a situation of difficulty as long as it does not become a habit. Okay.
My question is, I am working 7 days a week in summertime, and my job is very important. My boss allows me for one prayer, which is Asr, usually around 6 o'clock. But I don't have a choice because he said I can give you for one prayer time. But I always combine Maghrib and Isha. So in this situation, do I have to quit the job or?
I would ask, to be honest, legally he cannot do that. Legally your boss cannot force you to not, he cannot prevent you from praying. Legally, that's number one. So we should know our rights. That's one first thing I would say. Second thing, you are definitely going to get your lunch hour. You're definitely going to get you have, as part of your 8-hour work period, you have to get a 1 hour or half hour break. It's
half hour which is they give me for Asr prayer. But then I don't have time for Maghrib, so which I always combine Maghrib and Isha later when I am done.
yeah, like I will not, like I cannot give that ruling. I would just say that we should exhaust all other options before we go towards the option of moving prayer from one time to another as a habit. Because like I would, like personally, if I was in the situation, I would say, yeah, you're gonna give me half a break, give me 2 15-minute breaks. Right? Like I will try to find, like negotiate. Like I will not get to that point. Like if we have exhausted all options, then we can inshallah talk to a Shaikh or something and he can probably give a fatwa on this. I cannot say anything more than that. Sorry.
No, I can understand them. They have a problem. They need me. Nobody can handle that thing what I am doing. And that's the reason they told me, oh, we want to give you time, but you know.
So like in case of like for doctors, let's say, when they're doing surgeries and stuff like that, and the surgery is gonna go 4 hours, right? Then then the darura principle kicks in, right? When the darura principle kicks in, then things which are usually not allowed, they become allowed. Like I said, so based upon the situation, how dire the situation is, like it has to be done, and you cannot find any other work which is comparable, then you know there could be a case for it, right? So, but like I said, I will not. By the way, if you're muqim and you're doing this combining as a darura, you don't shorten the prayers. Shortening of the prayers only happens during travel, right? So you only just jama them, not shorten them. There is no qasr, there is only jama. Qasr means to shorten.
And for Jama also, like say I know that I cannot pray Asr on time. So at the time of Zuhr I can pray Asr earlier.
If you're doing jama, it could be done in the time of dhuhr or it could be done in the time of asr.
Same with the Maghrib and Isha.
Yes.
I can pray Maghrib at the time of Isha or Isha at the time of Maghrib.
When you're doing jama, it could be done on either or the other time, right? But I should also say that, again, we're talking about, that's the general principle for during travel, right? In the normative case, in your, you don't do that. And some scholars are very strict on this. They said, no, not allowed to move prayers from one time to another. But because of the hadith, and there are scholars who have said that it could be done, so that's, I'm just telling you that opinion as well. And occasionally you do find yourself in that situation, then, plan it accordingly. Rather than miss a prayer, do the joining, right? So.
Is there any limitations for the time interval in between two prayers when we have together?
Sorry.
Is there any time interval, how much there should be a gap when we make two prayers together?
I'm not sure if I understood that.
For example, if you're praying Zohar and Asr, can you pray them immediately one after another, or should you wait?
Like when I'm traveling, I'll give you an example of myself. When I'm traveling, going to Banff, right? I know I'm going to have a long travel afterwards. I'm going to stop over at Banff. And it's like, it's time for Dhuhr, it's just kicked in. I'll perform Dhuhr and Asr together at that time. It could be done, right? It's done at Hajj time as well, by the way, right? You guys know that, right? What is done at Hajj time? Which prayers are combined? Maghrib and Isha are combined in Muzdalifah. Right? We don't pray Maghrib in Arafat. We leave Arafat and we get to Muzdalifah and combine Maghrib and Isha. Right? So it's done. Okay.
One more question.
Okay, go ahead.
If the time for a prayer has passed, you become qada and you didn't pray it, do you pray the qada first, or do you pray the one that's due right now? Is there a ruling on that, or does it not?
This is a complex topic depending upon, usually you will, like if you're not praying in Jama'ah, you'll pray the qada and then you pray like for example, let's say you slept. After dhuhr, you fell asleep, right? And that was not intentional. You were intending to wake up from Asr, but you did not wake up. Asr just went away. As soon as you wake up, you perform Asr, and then you perform whatever other salah time is at that time. right? We'll talk about negligence and non-negligence. Intentionally doing it, almost some scholars said that is kufr. Someone saying that it is time for a dhuhr, I'm not going to do dhuhr. I have every opportunity to do dhuhr, I'm not going to do dhuhr. I'm going to let it go. That is very serious, very, very serious. Okay, so, inshallah we'll stop at this, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us one of those people who follow the best of guidance, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Wa iyyakum.